You're about to hear something that might challenge the way you've lived your entire life. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll feel it in your chest before you understand it in your mind. Because the truth is, most people walk through their relationships half awake, reacting instead of choosing, settling instead of questioning, tolerating instead of transforming themselves. And you don't realize how much of your emotional power you've surrendered until someone finally holds up the mirror and asks you the one question you've been avoiding. What part of your life is suffering simply because you refuse to confront yourself? When people lose interest in you, when connections fade, when attraction dies, the instinct is to blame the other person. But the deeper truth, the one people don't like to talk about, is that your energy speaks long before your words, and if your energy is tired, insecure, resentful, or uncertain, no amount of pretending can hide it. This entire video is going to reveal why the way you show up emotionally determines the way people respond to you, and how reclaiming your inner authority shifts everything around you without you having to force anything. So if you're willing to sit with yourself for the next few minutes, if you're ready to drop the excuses, and if you're brave enough to understand the psychology behind why people treat you the way they do, then keep watching. Because the moment you understand this, you won't chase validation, you won't beg for consistency, and you won't tolerate emotional chaos. You will move differently. You will speak differently. And the world, including the people you love, will have no choice but to respond differently to you. Stay till the end. This is the shift you've been searching for. When I say that calm, grounded presence is the most attractive flirting habit, most people underestimate what that actually means. They imagine silence, or acting mysterious, or pretending to be emotionally unavailable, but that's not presence. Presence isn't performance. Presence is mastery of your emotions, your impulses, your reactions, and most importantly, your inner dialogue. Younger women respond to it instantly because it communicates something they rarely experience in their own age group: psychological stability wrapped in masculine stillness. It's the kind of energy that doesn't demand attention, yet somehow becomes the center of gravity in any room it walks into. You see, younger women live in a world where chaos is normal. Their peers are impulsive, easily distracted, emotionally reactive, constantly trying to impress, constantly competing for validation. They're used to loudness, unpredictability, and immaturity disguised as confidence. So when a calm, grounded man appears, a man who doesn't need to raise his voice to be heard, who doesn't need to seek attention to feel significant, who doesn't need to advertise his worth to prove anything, he disrupts their entire framework of attraction. He stands out not because he is older, but because he is centered. And that contrast creates instant magnetism. This kind of presence is felt long before you speak. It shows in the way you make eye contact, steady, intentional, without trying to dominate. It shows in the way you stand, rooted, not fidgeting, not shrinking, not puffing yourself up. It shows in the way you smile, not as a performance, but as an authentic signal that you are comfortable in your own skin. Younger women pick up on this within seconds because presence is a biological cue. It tells them this man is safe, this man is aware, this man has emotional control, this man can navigate pressure without collapsing. And the truth is, women, especially younger ones, aren't attracted to cloud strength. They're attracted to quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself. The reason this is such a powerful flirting habit is because it makes her curious. Curiosity is the beginning of attraction. When she senses your grounded presence, she starts asking internal questions. Why is he so composed? Why doesn't he react like other men? Why does he feel different energetically? Why does his silence feel intentional instead of passive? Her mind begins to work, and in that moment, attraction starts forming, not because you tried to impress her, but because you didn't. You demonstrated a form of emotional discipline that younger men rarely possess, and that alone separates you without you having to lift a finger. Grounded presence also creates safety, and safety is one of the deepest emotional triggers for attraction. Not safety in a physical sense, but psychological safety. When a woman feels like she doesn't need to filter herself, when she senses you won't judge or overreact, when she sees that your mood doesn't shift based on insecurity or ego, she naturally opens up. Your presence becomes a calm space in a noisy world, and in that calm space, she relaxes, she reveals more of herself, she becomes more feminine because your groundedness gives her permission to surrender her defenses. Most men don't understand this. Femininity expands only in the presence of stable masculinity, and stability is communicated not through flirting techniques, but through your aura, your breath, your tone, your posture, your emotional stillness. This is why so many men fail at attracting younger women. They try too hard, they speak too fast, they move too much, they perform, they chase, they attempt to impress. And all of that communicates one thing: unstable energy. When you lack grounded presence, everything feels rushed, pressured, chaotic. And a woman, consciously or unconsciously, pulls away, not because she's rejecting you, but because your energy signals unpredictability. She doesn't want unpredictability. She wants certainty. She wants to feel that you are internally anchored, not tossed around by emotions or anxiety. Grounded presence also makes your words more impactful. When you finally speak, she listens. Not because your words are extraordinary, but because your silence gave them weight. You weren't rushing to talk. You weren't trying to fill the space. You waited, you observed, and you responded with intention. That alone separates you. It shows self-respect. It shows discipline. It shows control. And a man with control over himself, not over others, is a man women naturally gravitate toward. To cultivate this presence, you must first understand that it's not something you do. It's something you become. You can't fake calmness. You can't pretend to be grounded. Your nervous system reveals the truth. The more inner work you do, self-awareness, emotional regulation, learning to sit with your thoughts without running, the stronger your presence becomes. And the stronger your presence becomes, the less you need to flirt. Because presence itself becomes the flirtation. Presence becomes the attraction. Presence becomes the signal. A man who is grounded doesn't chase because he knows his value. He doesn't perform because he is not seeking approval. He doesn't collapse under pressure because his emotions don't control him. Younger women feel that. And once they feel it, it becomes almost impossible for them to ignore. So remember this: you don't attract by being louder. You attract by being deeper. You don't attract by trying harder. You attract by being more aligned. And the man who masters his presence becomes the man who doesn't need tactics, because he himself becomes the magnet. When people hear that attraction comes from energy rather than words, they assume it's something mystical or spiritual. But it's not. It's psychological. Human beings respond to energy before language, before logic, before conscious thought. We feel someone's presence long before we interpret their words. This is why the most powerful flirting isn't verbal, and it never starts with a line. It starts with the emotional frequency you carry the moment you enter her space. Younger women especially pick up on this instantly because they've grown up in a world full of noise. Digital noise, emotional noise, social pressure. Their intuition is sharper than they realize. They subconsciously scan for energy that feels different, energy that feels grounded, energy that feels intentional. And that's why your presence becomes your first form of communication. Your energy is communicated through micro behaviors you don't even notice. The pace of your breathing, the steadiness of your eye contact, the tension or relaxation in your body, the level of awareness in your movements. These signals tell her more than your words ever can. You can speak confidently, but if your energy is anxious, she will feel it. You can use smooth lines, but if your nervous system is shaky, she will sense it. You can flirt with all the techniques in the world, but if your internal state is chaotic, it will leak through every interaction. Energy doesn't lie. That's why many men confuse loudness with confidence. They think talking more, joking more, filling every silence will make them appear more charismatic. But real charisma is felt in the pauses, not the performance. It's sensed in your comfort with stillness. It's seen in your ability to hold space without trying to dominate it. Women, especially younger ones, respond to the man whose energy communicates certainty. Certainty doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean ego. It means you are emotionally self-contained. You aren't trying to get something from her. You aren't trying to impress her. You aren't trying to prove your worth. Your energy says, I'm enough even without your validation. And ironically, that's exactly what draws her in. When your energy is calm, she relaxes. When your energy is intentional, she becomes curious. When your energy is steady, she feels emotionally safe. Emotional safety is one of the strongest foundations of attraction, and it has nothing to do with being soft or submissive. It's about consistency. It's about stability. It's about being in control of your impulses and reactions. The reason energy is more attractive than words is because words can be rehearsed, but energy is honest. A man might say he's confident, but if his energy trembles when she looks at him, she won't believe the words. A man might say he's high value, but if his energy collapses when she pulls back even slightly, she won't believe the performance. A man might say he's calm, but if his energy becomes frantic when silence appears, she won't feel trust. Energy reveals your inner truth before you open your mouth. And this is why some men who say almost nothing can attract effortlessly, while others who talk endlessly get ignored. Words communicate intention, but energy communicates identity. And women, whether they realize it or not, respond to identity more than behavior. Energy also communicates boundaries. When you respect yourself, your energy feels grounded. When you don't chase desperately, your energy feels secure. When you aren't performing, your energy feels authentic. These things create a powerful emotional pull because they show that you operate from inner abundance, not inner scarcity. Younger women are especially sensitive to this difference. They can see when a man's flirting is fueled by insecurity. They can sense when he is attached to the outcome. They can feel when he needs approval. That kind of energy pushes them away because it creates pressure. But the man who flirts through his energy rather than his words creates space instead of pressure. He invites rather than convinces. He allows rather than forces. His energy gives her room to approach rather than overwhelming her with demand. This is why non-verbal flirting is so powerful. A slow, intentional smile signals confidence without desperation. A steady gaze communicates interest without dependency. A relaxed posture shows control without aggression. These small cues speak directly to her subconscious mind and trigger emotions that words could never reach. By the time you say your first sentence, she has already decided whether she is open to you or not, based on the energy you carry. That first impression isn't about looks. It's about emotional frequency. And understand this, the man who controls his energy controls the room. When you regulate your emotions, when you are aware of your internal state, when your energy is aligned instead of scattered, you become magnetic. Not because you are trying to attract, but because you have become the type of man whose presence naturally pulls attention. Younger women don't chase the man who is loudest. They chase the man who is most centered. They chase the man whose energy feels stable in a world that is unstable. They chase the man who feels like a calm anchor in emotional storms. So remember this, you don't attract her through the words you speak, but through the energy you carry before you speak them. If you want to become magnetic, don't focus on learning lines. Focus on mastering your presence, your awareness, your emotional rhythm, because the moment your energy aligns with your identity, Attraction stops being something you chase and starts becoming something you naturally create. When I say stability is rarer than looks, I'm not talking about financial stability or external maturity. I'm talking about emotional stability, the kind of inner grounding that so few men possess today, that when a woman, especially a younger one, encounters it, it feels almost unreal to her. People assume younger women are attracted to older men because of superficial advantages, but that's a shallow explanation. The truth is much deeper. Younger women are drawn to the emotional steadiness older men can have, not the age itself. It's the psychological contrast that captivates them. The difference between men who are driven by impulse, insecurity, and ego versus a man who operates from clarity, patience, and emotional self-command. Younger men often carry chaotic energy without even realizing it. Their reactions are fast, their tolerance for discomfort is low, and their sense of identity is still forming. They seek approval, compete excessively, get overwhelmed by emotions, and mistake assertiveness for aggression. They haven't yet built the internal architecture that creates stability. This is not a criticism, it's simply human psychology. Stability requires life experience, introspection, and emotional discipline, qualities that develop over time, often through pain, failure, and self-reflection. And that's exactly what sets the older, grounded man apart. Younger women might not be able to articulate it, but they feel it. They feel the difference between a man who reacts instantly versus one who takes a breath before responding. They feel the difference between a man who gets insecure when things don't go his way versus one who adjusts calmly. They feel the difference between a man who needs attention and one who chooses when and where to place his attention. This difference is magnetic because it signals psychological safety. It tells her this man won't break under pressure. This man won't collapse emotionally. This man won't need her to validate his worth. And in a world where emotional unpredictability is becoming the norm, stability becomes irresistible. Stability also communicates depth. When a man is emotionally stable, it means he has processed his experiences rather than running from them. He understands himself. He has confronted his insecurities instead of projecting them onto others. He knows what he wants, not because he is rigid, but because he has clarity. This depth is rare, and rarity always attracts. Younger women lean into that depth because it makes them feel grounded. They feel like they can stop pretending for a moment. They feel like they can exhale. They feel like they can be themselves without fearing emotional volatility. The most powerful thing about stability is that it creates a space where a woman's femininity naturally expands. When she senses steadiness in a man, she doesn't need to control, manipulate, or perform. She becomes softer, more expressive, more open, not because he forces her to, but because his stability makes her feel safe enough to let go. Modern dating is full of men who try to appear confident while carrying inner instability. Their energy feels unpredictable. They shift moods quickly, become reactive, and fluctuate between neediness and detachment. This creates confusion in a woman, even if she cannot explain why. Confusion kills attraction. Stability creates clarity, and clarity is one of the most attractive emotional experiences a woman can have. Stability is also tied to self-respect. A stable man knows how to draw boundaries. He doesn't tolerate disrespect. He doesn't negotiate his values. He doesn't allow emotional games to disturb his peace. Younger women respect this instinctively because it reflects emotional maturity. They are used to men who bend immediately, who chase validation, who lose themselves the moment attraction begins. So when a man with stability says no calmly, or holds his standards without anger, or walks away when something violates his principles, she feels a kind of admiration that younger men rarely evoke. It shows that his identity is not negotiable. It shows that he lives by internal principles, not external approval. You must understand stability is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of emotion. It is not being cold. It is being consistent. It is not suppressing your feelings. It is expressing them wisely. It is not detachment. It is grounded attachment, where your sense of self does not depend on another person's reaction. This is why stability is more attractive than looks. Looks grab attention, but stability holds it. Looks fade into the background, but stability becomes the anchor. Looks stimulate infatuation, but stability builds trust. And trust is the root of desire. Younger women are not seeking perfection. They are seeking reliability. They are seeking a man who doesn't crumble when things get real. They are seeking a man who is emotionally predictable in a world full of emotional chaos. So here's the truth: if you want to attract deeply, consistently, and effortlessly, don't obsess over your image. Build your stability. Build your emotional strength. Build the internal foundations that make your presence feel safe, grounded, and unshakable. Because in the end, the man who looks good may catch her eye, but the man who is stable will capture her mind. When I say the most attractive men don't perform, they observe. Most people misunderstand what observation truly means. They think observation is passive, silent, unengaged. But real observation is one of the strongest forms of presence. It's awareness without pressure, attention without desperation, interest without expectation. And this is exactly why younger women respond to it so powerfully. When a man stops performing and starts observing, his entire energy shifts. He is no longer trying to win her approval. He is evaluating whether she aligns with his standards, his peace, and his values. That subtle shift in dynamic creates a psychological pull that is far more powerful than any flirting tactic. Younger women are used to men who chase. They're used to men who present themselves like a rare sommet, listing achievements, exaggerating qualities, showcasing charm, trying to impress with humor or stories. That performance becomes predictable, even exhausting. It communicates insecurity more than confidence because it reveals that the man is seeking something: validation, attention, acceptance. When a man performs, he silently admits he believes he needs to earn her interest. But the moment he stops performing and begins observing, he communicates something entirely different. I value myself enough to pause and truly see you. That message, unspoken yet crystal clear, is one of the most powerful non-verbal signals a woman can receive. Observation also reflects emotional maturity. When a man observes, he's not rushing. He's not trying to fill silence. He's not overwhelmed by the anxiety of making a good impression. Instead, he is comfortable in the flow of the moment. He allows space. He listens actively, not to respond, but to understand. He watches her body language, the tone behind her words, the intention behind her reactions. This level of awareness makes her feel seen, not judged. And younger women are rarely truly seen. They are often admired for their beauty, desired for their youth, or praised for their charm, but not genuinely understood. So when a man takes the posture of an observer rather than a performer, she experiences a depth of attention she never knew she needed. And here's the part most men don't realize: observation is attractive because it communicates power, not the superficial power that comes from loudness or dominance, but the quiet power that comes from inner control. When you observe, you control the pace of the interaction. You decide when to speak, what to respond to, and how to engage. You're not reacting impulsively. You're responding intentionally. This makes her feel like the connection is unfolding naturally, with depth, with rhythm, and with maturity. Your calm observation becomes the anchor that grounds the entire interaction. Observation also transforms your flirting. When you observe, you don't bombard her with compliments. You give one precise, meaningful insight that hits deeper. You don't try to impress her. You connect based on what you learn about her. You don't rush the conversation. You guide it based on her energy. This makes her feel valued, not targeted. It makes her feel chosen, not pursued. And that difference is what creates real attraction. Men who perform are predictable. They follow patterns. They try to be charming, funny, impressive. But men who observe become unpredictable in a powerful way. They aren't trying to win. They aren't trying to manipulate. They simply exist in their truth, watching, evaluating, and responding with intentionality. This unpredictability creates intrigue. She wonders what you're thinking. She wonders what you notice. She wonders what you feel. And the moment a woman becomes curious, attraction begins to bloom. Observation also protects your boundaries. When you observe, you can see red flags early. You notice emotional instability, attention, seeking behavior, or inconsistency. You're not blinded by infatuation because you're not rushing. You're not performing. You're analyzing whether this connection contributes to your peace or disturbs it. This is the kind of emotional discipline younger women rarely see, and that's exactly why they respect it. You must understand attention is a gift, and women know this. When you give attention recklessly, it loses value. When you give attention intentionally, it becomes powerful. Observation is intentional attention. It is selective. It is conscious. It communicates that you know your worth, that you know your standards, and that you choose quality over impulse. A man who observes is not passive. He is powerful in silence. He is confident without excessive talk. He is present without performing. And younger women cannot ignore this kind of man because he is rare. He doesn't walk into a room seeking approval. He walks in with awareness. He doesn't chase validation. He evaluates the energy around him. He doesn't beg for connection. He chooses it with wisdom. So remember this. You attract not by proving who you are, but by knowing who you are. And the man who observes instead of performs becomes the man every woman notices. Not because he tries to stand out, but because his presence naturally speaks louder than performance ever could. When I say attraction happens when you choose her without needing her, most people misunderstand the depth behind that statement. They assume it means emotional detachment or pretending not to care, but that's not the truth. Choosing without needing is one of the highest emotional states a man can operate from. It is self-respect mixed with intentionality. It is desire without dependency. It is presence without pressure. And younger women respond to this combination more intensely than most men realize, because it communicates something they don't often feel from younger men: emotional independence. Neediness is the silent killer of attraction. The moment a woman senses that a man's interest is rooted in desperation rather than genuine choice, something inside her shuts off. She feels responsible for his emotions, and responsibility destroys romance. But the man who chooses her freely, who shows interest without clinging, who engages without attaching his identity to the outcome, that man becomes magnetic. His energy feels clean, not heavy. It feels inviting, not demanding. And younger women instinctively lean toward this emotional energy because it feels mature, grounded, and rare. Choosing without needing means you approach from abundance, not deficiency. You aren't hoping she completes you. You aren't looking for her reaction to validate your worth. You aren't obsessed with getting a response, a reply, or reassurance. Your self-worth is already intact before she enters the picture. And that independence creates a psychological shift in how she experiences you. Instead of feeling chased, she feels selected. Instead of feeling pressured, she feels desired. Instead of feeling like she's being pursued out of loneliness, she feels like the connection is intentional, mindful, and balanced. Younger women are drawn to this because they're surrounded by men who want them, but very few who value themselves enough to act from self-control. Most men fall into extremes. They either chase aggressively or detach completely. But the man who expresses interest while maintaining internal sovereignty stands out instantly. His energy signals that he is not driven by fear of losing her. He is not overwhelmed by the idea of impressing her. He is not seeking her attention for emotional survival. He wants her, but he doesn't need her. That creates a dynamic where she feels free to approach rather than obligated to respond. This kind of emotional independence is incredibly attractive because it shows that you have a life, a purpose, and an identity outside of her. Younger women admire that because it implies leadership, vision, and clarity. A man who is centered in himself naturally becomes someone she can respect. And respect is the foundation of female desire. When she respects you, attraction grows on its own. When she senses your neediness, attraction collapses instantly. Choosing without needing also reflects emotional maturity. It shows that you can hold space for a connection without losing yourself inside it. You don't panic when she takes time to reply. You don't spiral when you sense distance. You don't interpret every interaction as a sign of acceptance or rejection. You remain steady. You remain grounded. And your steadiness communicates confidence on a deeper level than confidence ever could through words. She feels your internal stability in the way you move, speak, and respond. That calmness becomes your flirting. That control becomes your charm. It also shifts the power dynamic in a healthy, balanced way. When she knows you're not desperate, she relaxes. She doesn't feel like she has to perform. She doesn't feel like you're expecting something from her. She feels like she has space to express her feminine energy without pressure. And this is where genuine attraction begins. When both people feel free, not trapped by unspoken emotional demands. Choosing without needing also means you walk away when something violates your standards. You don't hold on to someone who is inconsistent, disrespectful, or emotionally manipulative just because you fear being alone. You choose peace over chaos. You choose clarity over confusion. And this is something younger women admire deeply because it communicates strength, not weakness. A man who can walk away is a man who knows his worth. And a man who knows his worth doesn't beg for attention. He attracts it naturally. Attraction is never about possession. It is about connection. And connection only grows when two people meet from a place of wholeness. You cannot be whole if you need someone to validate your existence. You cannot be confident if your emotional stability depends on someone else's reaction. You cannot be attractive if your desire is fueled by fear. So remember, this interest creates attraction, but independence creates respect. And respect is the force that keeps a woman emotionally invested long after the initial spark fades. Choose her because she adds value to your life, not because you need her to complete it. Because in the end, the man who desires without depending becomes the man she never forgets. Not because he held on tightly, but because he stood firmly in himself.